Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Deal with D and J. My co-host, Jacob Prail. Alongside me is DJ McCathran. New background, new haircut?
New haircut, couple days
New
old.
haircut. I mean, look at this guy. Moved in, kinda. Listen, ladies and gentlemen,
Everything
he showed
is
me
in.
what it looked like beforehand, and this is the nicest that his apartment looks, is what you see. This is all he could find. Is what's right behind him. But yeah, DJ, new background, new hairdo, new location, new everything. How we feeling?
Life's brand new, Jacob. We are making it work. Making it work. You? How are you doing?
Good. Prepping for the season to come and prep for soccer, prep for football, prep for basketball. The summer went a little too fast for me. Would like it to last longer, but not much more you can do there. Not much more you can do.
I hear you.
But, well, it's before we continue our series of covering each conference. This week we got the Big 12. MLB trade deadline. By the time you're listening to this, we'll have passed. Anything after this recording will be on TikTok, so take a look there. But let's talk a little bit about some of these trades here. I mean, the first big puzzle piece to fall was Josh Naylor getting traded to the Seattle Mariners. I'm looking up what he got traded for, but for the Mariners here, this was big win. You needed to add an extra bat. You needed to get something else into that rotation. They acquired Josh Naylor, and they gave up left-handed pitcher Braden Garcia and right-hander Ashton Izzy to the Diamondbacks. I mean, that's the thing. You got guys where you just have to build, and Josh Naylor is an important piece to them because not only do you have Cal Raleigh playing at an MVP caliber level right now, but now you add in another bat of Josh Naylor. Like, that's a tough lineup to pitch through over in Seattle. So that's a big win for them over there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Josh Naylor. I'm very familiar with the Naylor brothers, but Josh, power. Hits for a lot of power. He's got the ability to, put the ball in play a lot for this already dangerous Seattle Mariners team. So I like that pickup. I think it was great.
Continuing on, the Mets continue to get bullpen relief, picking up Gregory Soto, trading him from the Baltimore Orioles. The Yankees get their corner third baseman. And Yankee fans, DJ, are not happy that it's not Eugenio Suarez. Instead, they get Ryan McMahon from the Colorado Rockies. And I personally love this trade for the Yankees simply because McMahon, already really good bat. He's really good defensively, better than Suarez defensively. And you have more control on him than if you got Suarez. Suarez obviously has like 36 plus home runs right now, batting out of his mind. But McMahon just fits what the Yankees need better. But Yankee fans were quite upset that they didn't acquire Suarez.
I think it's rightfully so. I mean, for your blanket Yankee fans, you look at 220, 16 home runs, 38 RBIs, and 80 hits. I mean, what sticks out to me is 16 home runs by a shortstop. I think that's, pretty impressive. But you look at the batting average, it's only 220. And you had the opportunity, or they desired a better pick. But like you said, he's great defensively. He's obviously hitting for some power. And, I can, a project maybe. They obviously some potential in him, but I think it's the Yankees. They have all the money to buy who they want, and they got somebody probably when their stock was low, in my personal opinion.
I don't think it's a project. I think Ryan McMahon was one of the better players trying to carry that offense of the Colorado Rockies, and now he can just slot in, probably bat 6th or 7th, and just be himself. You get that kind of pressure off of you a little bit, not having to be the big dog. You got other people that can be the big dog for you. So I like the pick for the Yankees. Kind of just going in order from what I'm reading here. Royals get Randall Grichuk, kind of just add some depth in the outfield. Same with the Yankees. They get utility man Ahmed Rosario from the Nationals. The Braves acquire Eric Fetty from the Cardinals. Have fun with that. That dude sucked. We gave up Tommy Edman for him. Mozeliak with another terrible trade. Braves fans, have fun because it's batting practice whenever Fetty's on the mound. 5-15 in his 20 starts as a Cardinal. Actually, I think it's 5-17 now. Tigers continue to bolster the pitching staff. Add Chris Paddock and Randy Dobnik from the Twins for Enrique Jimenez. The Rays deal Danny Jansen to the Brewers. And the Rays also acquire Nick Fortes from the Marlins, so kind of dish a catcher, get a catcher. We get a mid-game, not a mid-game trade, but the doubleheader between the Orioles and the Blue Jays. Sir Anthony Dominguez, in between the first and second game, was traded from the Orioles to the Blue Jays. So in one game he was pitching against the Blue Jays, and then the next he was pitching for the Blue Jays. How often do you see that? Yankees add Austin Slater in a deal with the White Sox. Angels and Nationals swap pitchers. Congrats to them. Congrats, buddy. Braves continue to add more pitching. They add Tyler Kinley from the Rockies in exchange for Austin Smith. The Reds get Ke'Bryan Hayes in exchange for reliever Taylor Rogers and a prospect. I love this move for Cincinnati. Cincinnati's sitting there right on the cusp of a wild card push. You add another really good bat and a really good defender at that in Ke'Bryan Hayes. I love this move. Like the Reds, 3.5 games out of the wild card spot. Sitting right there with a 56-52 record. Getting Ke'Bryan Hayes, I'm not going to say that puts them as a front runner, but this is a good move for Reds fans that have been waiting for things to get done. This is a good move for them. Continuing.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, adding a Gold Glover to your roster. I mean, Terry Francona he's the king of this stuff, making roster moves, doing what he can with his roster, and he's really put the Reds in a position to make that wild card push, especially after this, really good pickup. Really good pickup.
Yeah, really like this trade for them. Continuing on, the Mets acquire Tyler Rogers, another reliever. But Tyler Rogers has low-key been a great starting pitcher for the Giants right now. I have him a couple fantasy baseball leagues. He's been working out really well. Continuing on here, the Mariners get another reliever in Caleb Ferguson, and arguably the biggest trade so far of the deadline that's been confirmed is Philadelphia Phillies acquire Johan Duran from the Twins. They gave up Mick Abel and catcher Eduardo Tate. I mean, the Phillies needed a closer. They needed it bad. And they got the best one in the biz since Emmanuel Clase is, currently under investigation. Wow. Phillies go and get their guy. I know those listening being like, this guy doesn't sound pretty enthusiastic. I mean, it's the Phillies acquiring an incredible closer for what is going to be arguably one of their, I'm not going to say last playoff pushes, because as long as you have Harper, Schwarber in that core, but there's no better time than now. Schwarber, I think has 38 home runs. Bryce Harper is Bryce Harper. Trey Turner is Trey Turner, right? And you got Zach Wheeler pitching at a Cy Young level. You got Aaron Nola. You got Christopher Sanchez pitching insane. You got Ranger Suarez with a sub-2 ERA. There's no better time than now for the Phillies, and now they got their closer to shut down games for them in the big moments. And this just puts the Phillies right back up top of the hunt.
Yeah, no, I mean, they struggled with, we'll call it second half pitching, towards the back half of these games. You had somebody 6-4, 2.01 ERA. Fantastic closer, 16 saves this season. Dude is killing it. And like you said, Emmanuel Clase being out, which really hurts the Guardians. But the Twins let a really good one go, and the Philadelphia Phillies, they really capitalized.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible, especially you give up Mick Abel. Mick Abel is a really good pitcher, but they still got Andrew Painter in the pipeline, and that dude's going to get called up at some point. So for the Phillies, making this late push is great. The Twins, kind of surprised seeing them starting to sell the farm a little bit, but I mean, 51, 57, 6 games out of the wild card. I think it's them really looking at themselves with 60 games roughly left to play. Like, how much more of a push can they really give to try and make that jump into the playoff hunt? You know what I'm saying? Six games by no means you're completely out of it, but you're having an honest conversation with yourselves, because that's what the Cardinals are doing. The Cardinals are having an honest conversation with themselves and are, I think, realizing that they are just an average ball club. And as a Cardinals fan, that's infuriating. Trading, as of right now, Jeff Passan on Wednesday. Jeff Passan is reporting that the Mets are acquiring Ryan Helsley. They're just continuing to add more relief pitching. Because if you're the Mets sitting at 62 and 47, it is very, here we go. Here's the full trade right here. The Cardinals are acquiring shortstop Jesus Baez, right-hander Nate Dom, and right-hander Frank Eliasit for Ryan Helsley. The Mets have used 6 players today to get 2 high-end relievers to put in front of Edwin Diaz. I mean, just the Mets are going after it too, really trying to get those shutdown guys for that bullpen. Cardinals get some good prospects. We get a shortstop. He's not going to do anything. Maybe he turns it, like, the pitchers I think I might like if they are able to give us something, right? Given what the Cardinals' dilemma is with the pitching staff. But trading Ryan Helsley wasn't inevitable. I think we didn't capitalize on his highest maximum value, which was this offseason when he had 48 saves the previous season. Like, he was unreal versus this year. He hasn't been as good. But yeah, I mean, as a Cardinals fan, it's you just have to accept the cards that you're dealt. You know, we're probably going to trade Arenado, hopefully, but he has a no trade clause. Who knows who else we trade? Maybe Newt Barr's in the mix. You never know. Alec Burleson, Brendan Donovan could be in the mix. It's just a frustrating time to be a Cardinals fan. I just want to blow up the franchise at this point. Like, it's just so sad to see what the ball club has become and how our GM is a shell of himself after being ultra aggressive in years previous versus now.
Yeah, I mean, you had a lot of experience go away in the last 7 years. You know, from Carpenter to Holiday to Molina. I mean,
Molina, Wainwright, Pujols. I mean, that's a lot of, we bring in Wilson Contreras. There's some upside with Herrera. There's a lot upside with Pozo. Mason Wynn is just okay. I'm interested to see what happens with J.J. Weatherholt because he's crushing in AAA right now. I'm interested to see kind of what other pitchers they bring up. The Jordan Walker experiment has failed, unfortunately. Same with Dylan Carlson when we had him. We had 2 of our top prospects and the projects have failed. So that's just sad to see. It's not exactly what you want out of your top prospects in your pipeline, but win some, you lose some, right? And unfortunately, the Cardinals are losing some. Hopefully, Kyle Bloom can get it back on the map, but I'm not holding my breath for that because we saw what he did to the Red Sox. So,
if you're at the bottom, all you can go is up, Jacob.
But as of right now, that's pretty much a trade deadline. I am pretty confident that the Red Sox are going to be buyers. I think the Rangers are going to be buyers as well. Not quite sure who else will be buyers. I don't quite see, there's still a lot of time left to happen here. Right, but does somebody like Zach Gallen or Merrill Kelly get traded? Sandy Alcantara has been in the floating around. So I'm waiting to see what that big domino looks like. But yeah, those are still some other names still out there. But yeah, there's still a lot of stuff. Luis Roberts is on deck. I think a lot of people are kind of holding pat and seeing what happens, especially at the top. And some teams don't need to make big moves. But that's kind of the trade deadline in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But you got any final parting thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say a big loser in this is the Guardians. I touched on it earlier. 2 top-notch pitchers that could have added value to a potential trade for Cleveland. Both being out, and then Emmanuel Clase in the last week getting an undisciplinary suspension. For a team that's in the hunt in their division and in this wild card hunt, that's huge. They could have added bats or more starting pitching to, I mean, the Cleveland pipeline is great. They've got prospects to replace somebody like Clase, and he was a top name, at least on Cleveland sites, in the past couple of weeks. But, just as a team, just to throw them out there as a team that, had the opportunity to make some really good moves, potentially good moves, falling short here with gambling issues, possible, alleged.
Yeah, I think
Allegedly.
both of our franchises are falling a little short. Like, you got Stephen Kwan getting his name thrown around, you got Shane Bieber getting his name thrown around. Clase was kind of in the mix, but now with this, he's going to be a guardian for now. But yeah, our teams are in the middle of the pack, so it's kind of disheartening when the trade deadline comes around, because guys are just going to get thrown to the wolves and get traded and whatnot. But DJ, without further ado here, let's jump into what we love to talk about, probably the most, which is college football.
Of course.
Right? Last week, me and Hunter from the Green Dog Podcast covered the ACC, where he made the very bold prediction, DJ, that Clemson will win the national title, which is, I was a little taken aback by.
Nick.
I'm not ready to get my pick yet, but I
can guarantee you it's not going to be Clemson.
I was very surprised by that. Without further ado here, DJ, let's talk about the Big 12, right?
Okay.
Conference my school is in, that I work for, Baylor, the Big 12. I call this conference the conference of chaos, right? Because we can name maybe 7 teams off the top of our heads who we think can win this conference, right? You got Kansas State. You got Arizona State, right? Texas Tech is in the mix this year, right? You have Baylor, very heavy sleeper in the Big 12. TCU's another sleeper, right? Utah could bounce back, right? BYU is still really good. You have Kansas and Jalen Daniels, and who knows what Kansas can be this year. Maybe Colorado takes the next step up into the promised land.
I just named one big one, but you're forgetting one, maybe two big ones.
Iowa State.
I'm thinking Texas Tech could be in the running.
I already said Texas Tech.
You said TCU.
TCU and Tech.
Utah?
I named you. Yep, named it. I named you 9 to 10 schools that have a genuine chance of winning the conference title if the cards go in their favor, which is what every team obviously says. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the team. I feel like I'm shouting. Am I shouting in your ear?
I can hear you nice and clear.
All right, cool. I feel like I'm shouting. I think it's these headphones are like, it makes everything louder. I'm trying something new here. Let's talk about Arizona State here, right? Defending conference title, Kenny Dillingham, Sam Leavitt coming back for another year, right? Kenny Dillingham's in his 3rd year. Arizona State, obviously, we remember that incredible game against Texas and Cam Scatterbo just doing everything possible to try and will this team to win. Right? Sam Leavitt, one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. There's no denying what he can do. He's an incredible passer of the ball. He's really good with his feet. But, so some people, Arizona State over-delivered what everybody saw what they were going to do, right? Mm-hmm. Now the pressure is on, right? What are you going to do when you lose a lot of talent out of a CFP run, right? You're bringing back Sam Leavitt, like I said. You're bringing back Jordan Tyson, right? But they also went and got a lot of good people in the portal too, right? Jalen Moss from Fresno State, right? Noble Johnson from Clemson, right? Jaron Hamilton, Alabama, might need to step up in a big way here, right? So it's, Sam Leavitt last year ranked 3rd nationally in QBR. The question is, can the offense, for me, we'll talk a little bit about the defense here, and I want you to jump in on the offensive side. But can the offense sustain the same type of firepower when losing some of these weapons, especially as big of a weapon that Cam Scatterbo was? Receiving back, quarterback at times, running back. He was doing so much for this Arizona State team on the offensive side of the ball with Sam Leavitt. Now, losing that, I'm very interested to see, what does that look like on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, you said that they're returning Jordan Tyson, Sam Levitt is returning. That's all great. I mean, I think the big question for me is they've got a tougher schedule in comparison to other Big 12 teams as well, right? Mississippi State, it could be hit or miss. SEC team, week 2, they're going to Mississippi State, right? It's going to be loud. It's a 7:30 game. That's going to be their first real contest. They get their opener, their warm up opener, against Northern Arizona, right? Cake. Texas State in week 3. They've got their recovery game after Mississippi State, but then they go into a little bit of, like we said, this surprising wide open Big 12 schedule. Baylor, TCU, Utah, Texas Tech, Houston, Iowa State, West Virginia, Colorado, Arizona. I mean, you're looking at it in the broad scope, right? These teams, majority of them aren't going to be ranked in preseason, right? But we know all of the additions and the possibilities, the ceilings for these teams are really high, right? Half of these teams are going to be 4-8, 5-7, right? 6-6. They're going to be battling for 500. But you've got these teams that surprise us year in, year out. Houston is hit or miss every year. TCU can be hit or miss. Utah, they've been dealing with, oh my gosh, what is his name? Cam Rising being injured, but he's officially gone now. They don't have to deal with him anymore. But you've got these teams that are just big question marks that, Arizona State handled really well last year. They should have won that game against Texas. Arizona was the better team in that game. If it wasn't for Quinn Ewer's quick audible, I don't know, again, why you all-out blitz on 4th down in that situation. But that's neither here or there. But this Arizona State team, the weapons on the offense, they're coming back. So, I mean, I've got no complaints with this offensive side. I think Jordan Tyson is going to fit right back in. I really do.
Yeah, I think continuing on, I think a big part of what Arizona State did is they really surprised. They had a really good beginning of the year, right? They were solid, and then out of nowhere they ripped 5 straight and the offense became this juggernaut, right? Defensively, they lost a lot of defense, right? And they get 4 and here's the thing, I'm reading this right here. They out of the 17 defenders last year that they had with 200 plus snaps, 14 of them are returning. That is so critical for you to contain and continue and maintain success as a elite football program that Arizona State is. And I'm going to say it too, I think Kenny Dillingham's a great coach. I love the energy he brings. I love his mentality. I love it all, right? But again, in the Conference of Chaos, what does that truly look like now after a season of unprecedented success?
Yeah, no, that's the big question. And I'm reading something here that said Cam Scatabo accounted for almost 38.5% of all scrimmage yards for Arizona State.
That's what I'm saying.
38.5. That's insane.
Incredible. Let's go ahead and let's jump over to Kansas State here. I want to keep these. Me and Hunter talked ACC preview, and it was nearly an hour and a half long. I'm not trying to go that long. I want to talk about the big dogs as the big dogs, and then talk about, everybody else in this conference as well. But Kansas State here, I mean, they have all the eyes on them. Mm-hmm. Chris Kleiman, 7th year as head coach, 48-28 overall. Bringing back Avery Johnson, right, who is incredible, right? He has such incredible running ability. He's pretty good with the ball, right? And, when the offense clicks, they averaged 38 points per game when the offense is clicking.
Yeah.
Right? And I think for K-State, this feels like not only feels like your year to win the conference again, but feels like your year to make the CFP and punch that ticket. I mean, not only is Avery Johnson coming back, right, which she's a little bit of a roller coaster ride. Like, talking about, in some of these games where they average 37.6 points per game, and their losses, they averaged 15.8 points per game. And against Iowa State, he was 12 of 28, which you can't do in a Big 12 title race in November. But Dylan Edwards comes back, 7.4 yards per carry last year. Had nearly 200 yards in the bowl win. Right? They're bringing back a slot receiver, Jace Brown, 17.5 yards per catch. Bringing in the transfers now, right? Of Antonio Martin, running back, receiver Caleb Medford, right? You're just bringing in all these guys. You're bringing in almost a brand new offensive line, but you get your All-American center back, right? And if they do what they're supposed to, and if the video game tells me anything, playing against K-State is going to be really, really hard. Because Avery Johnson can roll out, do everything he can with the ball, and more. I think K-State, if you're a K-State fan, you're going into this year really, really happy with where this team is, where the pieces are, and how everything else is going to happen here.
Okay, here, I'm going to have you pause real quick. I'm going to check something out. I heard something really loud outside. Yeah, Kansas State, man, 11 wins in 2024. Going to be a head-to-head battle, I think, with Arizona State for the top of this conference. I think, though, my worry about Kansas State is when they look really good, they hardly ever perform to the level that they're supposed to. Right? They've stepped up to the table, right? When they weren't supposed to, right? They beat TCU in their miracle run a few years ago and almost stopped them from moving to the college football playoffs in the last year of the four, I believe, maybe second to last year of the four. And they've got a really tough conference schedule as well. They did a really good job at replacing some depth on the bench, and let's see. They are preseason favorites for the top of this conference. And again, they're coming off a really good season. But the inconsistency, like we could say the same thing about Arizona State. They've kind of just risen from the dead. But again, I don't see Kansas State as a team that replicates an 11-win season again for the 2024 season. And I could arguably say the same thing for Arizona State, but this Kansas State team, it's just something's just not sitting right with me about them. And Avery Johnson, like you said, he can be iffy at times. Consistent, inconsistent. It's 12 for 28 is not going to win you ball games. I don't remember what game that was either.
That was against Iowa State, from what I read.
They lost that game too, right?
Yeah.
Is that their loss for the... And so, I mean, it's hard to say that he's going to be any worse than he was because... he's young. He's going into his junior year, I believe. So Kansas State is just one of those teams that I'm not confident in. Rooting for them. I hope they do well. When Kansas State is good, the Big 12 is popping, and I just have this gut feeling that they're not going to rise to that occasion this year. It's just something in here that's got me feeling some sort of way.
Yeah, I think for me, hold on, I'm gonna pause. I think the next team I want to move on to is Texas Tech. Last year, not the best season by any means, but last year, they were 7-6. Nothing crazy, right? And averaging about 7-8 wins. Last year, Texas Tech was 8-5, kind of 6-3 in the conference, kind of in that middling ground in terms of where they are. And this year, they are at the top of the totem pole in terms of preseason favorites. Joey McGuire has done an incredible job of recruiting. Not only has he done an incredible job recruiting, they've also done an incredible job of spending some money. This year, they brought in such a large class of transfers. They're bringing in they're bringing in running back Quentin Joyner, 76 yards per carry from USC. Bringing in Miami of Ohio wide receiver Reggie Virgil, right? You get Terrence Carter Jr. Bringing in all these incredible dudes, right? And bringing in, Caleb Douglas and Coy Eakin back. You're bringing back a lot of guys as well. And then you still have your quarterback, Baron Morton, right? But they spent a lot of money, DJ. I saw they're like I think they spent nearly like $5.5 million on their roster or something like that. They spent I think more. I think it might be more.
In the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Maybe in the transfer portal, but they're up there with the likes of Ohio State and Texas this past year.
Not 5.
And Oregon.
Yeah, not 5.5. Freaking $55 million on it. Like 55. Let me move the decimal over one more place. That's how much money they put into this roster. The question is the roster ready to perform?
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of pressure for a team with a new offensive and defensive coordinator.
We get this one right this time?
Yes, I believe so. I hope so.
You're right, DJ. You're right. Growth. That's called growth, people. That's called growth.
It happens. Sometimes it gets the best of us. And like you said, Morton, if he can stay healthy and find some consistency in the offense, but again, you're almost going to learn on an entirely new offense with new coordinators out there. And they were the worst passing defense in football last year as well. So, I mean, you got to hope that the money you're spending is going to show out, right? Like, this is a school that people could easily just go to for the money, to collect a bag and go, while also seeing the field. But that doesn't mean that they got to perform. So it's Texas Tech has tremendous upside, but at the same time, their floor could be 4-8.
I think
5-7.
I think what's fascinating is they took the pay for play model and just went all in on it, right? They went all in, and there's not a lot going on in West Texas, up in Lubbock. Like, this is it for them. And to see if this experiment works is going to be a really telling sign of not only college athletics, but like of Texas Tech as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Or are we going to have to consider them now to be forerunners, front runners in all the sports now? Football, like you name it, like they're going to have the money now.
Yeah.
Defense is going to be interesting. They haven't had a top 50 defense in the past 15 years. They only had it one time. They're bringing in guys, defensive tackles. They're bringing in 3 guys who combined for 20.5 tackles for loss, 32 run stops, and 8 sacks, with 2 more edge rushers combining for 9.5 sacks and 16 tackles for losses. Does the secondary continue to improve? But Morton's the biggest question now, because he's got all this talent, but he's only had a QBR of 51 to 56 in the last 3 years, and they have such a big question mark with Micah Hudson as well. With he transferred, but then he came back type deal, and if he can actually play, it's such an important piece of that offense. But Texas Tech is just one of those teams where out of nowhere, they're all of a sudden a front runner. And to me, on the outside looking in, the main problem hasn't changed, which is the quarterback play. And you can bring in all this stuff, but if the engine's not good, the engine's not good. So I'm interested to see what Morton does, and if the is the cast of characters enough to survive Morton's kind of bad QBR play.
I was going to say we're going to find out a whole lot about this team in the first 6 weeks of football, but we're really going to find out about this team in the last 6 weeks of football. I'm looking at this schedule here, and if they can get through the first 6 games, which they'll have some trouble when it comes down to Utah, I believe, is their number 6. Oh no, Houston is their number 6. But then you've got Kansas, Arizona State, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, BYU, and UCF. And then West Virginia. They're going to be a big question mark with new head coaches coming in. It's kind of a gauntlet of a second half of teams, right? Because BYU, though you're playing them at home, that's a tough team, especially late in the year. That's an upset. That's upset city right there for BYU. They love playing spoiler. And then you've got Arizona State and Kansas State in 2 out of 3 weeks to kick off the second half of your season. Texas Tech is really they've got plenty of time to build up the confidence they need to go into these games. but they have got to perform. And I'm not calling them front runners until they get through Kansas. And once they get through Kansas, I'll see how serious they are because they're playing Kansas at home as well, but that's going to be the tempo setter going into Arizona, and Arizona gets to play at home. So
a lot to live up for Texas Tech here. I want to jump, and I'm itching to talk about my team, so I want to talk about them now.
go get them.
But I want to talk about the Baylor Bears. Arguably, maybe the most slept-on team in the Big 12, in maybe America, honestly. And, you know, it's one of those weird things with Baylor because you look at the weird in 2021, they won the Big 12. And then in the next two seasons was 9-16. Then last season started 2-4 and was not looking good. They
9-16
in the last two seasons.
Last two seasons, got it.
Last two seasons. And now from there, they started last year 2-4. Wasn't looking great, right? I believe they lost to a bye game at home last year, right? And out of nowhere, they made a change at quarterback from Derek Finn to Sawyer Robertson. And once Sawyer Robertson got the starting job, Baylor skyrocketed. Ripped off 6 straight wins. Sawyer Robertson, 3,000-plus yards. 28 total touchdowns. And the running back duo of Bryson Washington and Dawson Pendergrass had 1,700 rushing yards and 18 touchdowns. Right? The run game was so important for this Baylor offense. And Sawyer doing everything he can with his arm, with his legs. He's not known as the best runner, but he will make smart decisions and get out. He was the best quarterback in the Big 12 in terms of total QBR with 82.9, right? He brings back 2 wide receivers. They add in 3 wide receivers in the transfer portal. Kobe Prentice from Alabama, Louis Brown from San Diego State, and Cole Wilson from Texas State. You bring back 4 starters on the line with an all-conference guy. You're bringing in some important pieces on defense because the defense last year was not its best. The numbers will prove that. You know, they were 18 in defense to now they were third last year. You know, the pass defense was bad. They were just giving up points left and right. Everyone remembers the Colorado Hail Mary pass at the end of the game that Shedeur Sanders had. And so they really addressed that in the portal. They got an edge rusher from Tulane, right? They got a couple other big guys on the D-line. They bring in some 2 linebackers who are phenomenal on the blitz, right? Bringing in some great returners, but Baylor has arguably the toughest 6 weeks of anybody in America. And you can argue with a wall, honestly, because tell me who else has this type of schedule. Ready? I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna go 7. I'm gonna go the first 7 weeks are brutal. Open up Auburn, Friday night. Luckily, it's in Waco. Then the next week, you got to go to Dallas to take on an SMU squad who I think is still going to be really, really good, right? You get Samford, a little non-conference break. Then you get the conference front reigning champion, Arizona State. You get Oklahoma State at, Boone Pickett Stadium. That's not an easy task. You get K-State and at home, and then you got to go back up to Fort Worth to take on TCU in a rivalry game. It's brutal, right? Absolutely brutal. It's a tough schedule, man. But if you can get out of this, right, with maybe 1 loss, the committee is going to love it. Especially if you take down the likes of Auburn, out of the mix of teams of Auburn, SMU, Arizona State, and K-State. If you can beat 3 out of 4 of them, whew, that puts you in such a great position to be an at-large bid, and not only that, but also to win the Big 12. But it's easier said than done in the Conference of Chaos.
Yeah, Conference of Chaos is right. Even if they can get through all of that with 1 win, I'm sitting
1
here,
loss.
I'm looking at, what did I say?
1 win.
That's what I meant. With 1 loss, I'm still circling this Baylor at Arizona on the 22nd. But regardless of all that, that's a gauntlet.
I mean, the
I think that's. I mean, you're going to see what your team is made of week one.
Week one
Week
and
one.
week 1 and 2. To me, I've been telling everybody, if we can get out of the first 4 weeks 3-1, that sets us up for a really good season. 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, it does set you up for a good season. And
The first 4 games
I
are
don't know
tough.
what makes me.
Those things are tough, man.
I know, and that's what makes me. I don't know what I have to see from them in order for it to be confident. Like, how many weeks do I got to put out there before I'm like confident in the team itself? Because you can, again, you went 7 weeks in, 8 weeks in. It was 7,
I went 7
and
weeks in.
yeah, and so you put it at 4, and I'm like, well, you got to go to Oklahoma State. I'm like, but that's an upset waiting to happen.
It could
And then
be.
you got Kansas State, and if it's not then you got Kansas State the following week, and that might be at home, but then you got TCU in Fort Worth.
Listen, dude, it's tough. And not only that, let's say you get through that, and let's say you have 2 losses out of that, right? Then you get Utah in late November. And that's the last team you want to play in late November is Utah. And Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah, but at least you're playing them at home.
I mean, for the most, listen, we're getting Utah, Auburn, Kansas State, and Arizona State all at home. That plays into our favor, as for Baylor. And
you definitely got some home schedule, a home field advantage to help your season out. And I mean, you were 8-4 last year. The offense can hang, right? Can your defense make the stops necessary for you guys to move forward? I mean, you've got the 3 pieces. You've got your number 1 quarterback. You've got your number 1 running back in the Big 12, and you've got a crazy good wide receiver, kick returner, punt returner in Josh Cameron coming back. So you've got your staple pieces, right?
mm-hmm.
And the offense can put up numbers as they did last year. Replicating it, it's going to be hard to game plan, but the defense is what's going to matter. LSU is going to be a contender in the SEC, and you put up, 33 points against them in their bowl game last year? Something like that?
Yeah, give or take.
31-44. So your defense threw away the game. But you were able to stop teams like Kansas, who could be high-powered. But then you go ahead and you give 35 points up to West Virginia. And you handled other opponents off really well last year. Held up Oklahoma State, TCU. You were within 6 of BYU, which was on fire last year. So the opportunity is there. I'm confident in the offense. The defense is what I have question marks about. And I think if you can perform a little bit better than you did last year, I think you could be right in this thing.
Yeah, I think with Dave Aranda being a defensive guy, I don't think last year the defense was where he wanted it to be, honestly. I think this year, there was a very heavy emphasis in the portal on getting defensive players and obviously replenishing that wide receiver room. But this is a great opportunity for Baylor this year. And obviously, me working there, it's a little bit of a biased pick because I'm really high on this season. But they have it all to back it up, too. They have a lot of opportunity to back it up. Want to jump to another team. Let's stay in the state of Texas and talk about their rival, TCU. Sonny Dykes returning for a 4th year. And yet, last year was a very good season by TCU measures, right? 6-3 in conference, 9-4 overall at the end of the year. Right, they came out 6-1 in 1-score games, and I'm reading from that 2022 run. Apologies, but the TCU had a similar story to Baylor. Started out slow. They started out 3-3, right, and then they won 6 out of their last 7, and went up from there. The offense went up from there. The defense went from averaging 37 points a game to only allowing teams to 19. They had an absolute back and forth game, in a game that, I don't know if a lot of people watched, but the Baylor TCU game last year was incredible. Came down to a game-winning field goal to Baylor, taking it at the end, right? Josh Hoover, an underrated quarterback here, right? He's going into his junior year. And in his sophomore year, right, he had nearly 4,000 yards passing, 27 touchdowns, 67% completion percentage, right? But he threw a lot of interceptions in this type of stretch when they were going crazy. I'm very, very interested to see how they turn out. The defense, can it stay at its high caliber level, right? Can the offense and Josh Hoover take the next step up that is needed for them to maybe return to that level in 2022, right, when they made the national title game? And the defense, they got a lot of dudes coming in. They brought a lot of people back, too. Over 10 dudes with 200-plus snaps. But TCU and Baylor literally had the same type of trajectory. Started bad, surged late. Same with Arizona State being kind of middling, surged late. So now the question really is, when we talk about the conference at the end of this, is can you sustain? Can you match it? Can you replicate? And TCU and Baylor, both pretty even playing fields in terms of when you look from where they were last year to where they are this year, and the expectations coming from each program.
Yeah, no, I like a squad that Sonny Dykes has that is veteran, right? I think there's an emphasis on, we've seen what he can do with a veteran squad, with a team that knows what they're doing. The only problem I see with this team is the one dimension of the pass game, right? They are a big passing team, which is great. We love a good passing. We love watching a good passing team. But to win these big ball games, you need to be able to run the ball. I mean, 3.7 yards per carry last year is what TCU averaged on the ground. So the ground efficiency was very much lacking. But Eric McAllister, led the team in receiving. He's coming back. You said Josh Hoover. He was the school record passer in 2024 last year. And so he's got to maintain the same level. But I like Sonny Dykes' ability, again, to work with a veteran presence. We've seen what he can do with it. Max Duggan, right? If I'm pulling that out of the back of the head, Max Duggan, right, was not the best quarterback in football, but he was an absolute dog, right? He made the right plays, and that's what you need out of a quarterback. You don't need a Joe Burrow, Justin Fields behind there. It helps, but you don't need that back there. And Sonny Dykes has proven that as the head coach. TCU, probably one of the more underrated squads in this. If I were to put them up against, like you said, Baylor, I would lean more TCU, just in the fact that I've seen Sonny Dykes do it, right? They don't have as many variables at the moment like Baylor does. But TCU, I'm expecting to have a good season this year.
Touching upon BYU here, I think for them, at an incredible start of the year, and things just fell apart. Losing to Kansas late. I believe they lost the game to Iowa State late, right? But they attacked the transfer portal well. But I don't know what you're going to do when you lose your starting quarterback in early July. With Jake Retzloff leaving the team due to investigative reasons and breaking, he was found not guilty of what he was accused of, but because he violated university policy by having sex with a woman, he had to leave campus. And now he's at Tulane. And BYU's just going to do what they do best. But the question is now, you got question marks at quarterback, and that's never a good thing to have at the beginning of August. So, very interested to see what happens to BYU. Kalani Sitake, or Sitake, in his 10th year, 72 and 43 overall. I mean, they're probably going to get 7 wins. They do what they do really well. But the quarterback thing really worries me, even though I know the offense has the weapons, they have the O-line, they have the defense to be competitive. But you can't – I just find it hard to have a successful season with a guy you thought was going to be your quarterback, and now he's at another school and it's August. You know what I'm saying? So I like BYU, but my expectations for them is a little bit lower than I am feeling for some other schools.
Yeah, this year screams 7-5, 6-6,
That's
couple big upset wins, and so like you said, it's they're going to be very one-dimensional with the quarterback change. LJ Martin's gonna has the ability, to carry this team. It just doesn't have the ability to carry this team to the promised land, and that's just what it's going to be. There's really not much to add. Chase Roberts is a great weapon to have out wide, but again, with quarterback issues, how effective is he going to be? Especially if he's going to be the only target out there. I have more faith in their run game than I do with Chase Roberts being the impact player that he's projecting to be.
Jumping into the other team in Utah, the Utah Utes, last year, disastrous. Cam Rising gets hurt for the 45th time, it feels like. You're starting 4 different quarterbacks. You're doing everything you can. Like, things were just not going well. You were losing close games. Things weren't going great. But they're primed for an incredible turnaround. They bring in a new offensive coordinator, Jason Beck, who is coming from New Mexico. And not only is he coming from New Mexico, he's bringing in his quarterback, Devin Dampier. Right? They're bringing in 4 new running backs, 6 new receivers, right? He's bringing his entire O-line back, right? And now you have a guy in Dampier who's an incredible runner, right? Over 1,000 pre-sack rushing yards and 19 total touchdowns from this guy. Bringing in Wayshawn Parker and Nakiri Rogers, right? Again, another New Mexico transfer. Washington State, right? They're going to have an incredible run game. But the real question is, can Dampier step up to the level that is needed in Big 12 football, right? He's going to be able to make plays. But can he limit the mistakes and keep the offense on the field in high-scoring games? He's super dynamic. Passing is yet to be seen, right? Coming from New Mexico. But, if a guy's going to figure it out, right, Kyle Whittingham's going to figure out his quarterback this year, especially after what happened last year. Right? I think the defense has a ton of dudes returning. The defensive line is going to be really young. There's a lot of upside to this Utah team. And if they can continue to improve the offense and the defense can stay where it has been normally, this Utah team will be a heavy contender.
100%. Devin Dampier is definitely going to be a Dampier, whatever. Is definitely going to be an upgrade from last year. Like you said, just completely disastrous season last year. They could not get anything going on either side of the ball. Cam Rising, just, a kid with high hopes, for that team especially, and wasted it all. Why are you whining at me? Sorry, our mascot is throwing a temper tantrum. And they're going to get the opportunity to show off what they're made of early. They open up at UCLA. They open up in Pasadena on the road. We're going to get the full scope of what Utah has to offer. Experienced O-line is a great recipe for having a transfer quarterback come in and succeed. There's nothing better than you can give a transfer quarterback than an offensive line ready to protect them. And with a veteran group there, and you give Dampier the ability to scramble if need be. This Utah team has a tremendous upside from, if not the most upside from coming into this year. So the way they finished last year to where they could go this year skyrockets.
Continuing on, I'm looking at this conference, DJ, and there's just so many dudes to talk about. Every team has a chance, some way you feel like, to maybe make some magic, right? We're looking at Iowa State, arguably one of the conference front runners last year, right? He's been, Matt Campbell comes back for his 10th year, right? He's brought them to 2 title games. They bring back Rocco Beck. The defense is always going to be really good. The run game for Iowa State is going to be legit. I think the question is, without trying, to sound like a broken drum, is can they continue to improve the offense? It's everyone's question is, can they improve the offense? Can they win close games? Can they stay in the fight? Because last year, man, the wheels fell off at the end, especially with that drubbing they had against Arizona State in the title game. And you're losing some pretty big dudes. Like, you lost Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll to the NFL draft, your top 2 wide receivers, and you got to replace that. You brought back your running back. You're bringing back an entire O-line full of experience, but your pass catchers are gone. You're trying to bring in some guys, and you're going to probably have to test on some young guys, like some freshmen and sophomores, to try and step up for a team that has to be ready to hit go. And I'm not sure if the wideouts are ready to hit go, unlike Rocco Becht and Carson Hansen and Sama. So I like the offense, though. The defense does solid, but they always lose a game they probably shouldn't lose. They win a game they probably shouldn't win. And the question is, again, can the offense continue to improve? And how do you replace incredible production at the wide receiver slots?
Yeah, I mean, Iowa State came off a surprisingly good season, or had a surprisingly good season, compared to what they did the year prior. I mean, 2 years ago they were 4-8 to 7-6, and now they're 11-3. I mean, Matt Campbell really working some magic. I mean, he's been with this team for this would be his 9th year, I believe. It's been pretty consistent. Started off rough, but he's been in that 7-8 win season range. Nothing super spectacular, a couple big upsets, but last year really hit his peak with this team. And like you said, it's the Wild West, is the Big 12. And so we hate being a broken record, but that's exactly what it is. It's a broken record being scratched. They've got to improve. They got to be better, because that's all that this conference. Getting people to Iowa State is probably a problem in and of itself, right? Who wants to go to Iowa? There's not much. Spoiler alert for anybody who was wanting an actual answer. Not a lot of people want to go to Iowa. And then you add the fact that you have teams in your conference building $20+ million rosters, or in this case, $55 million roster. It's an issue for Iowa State. And so if he can replicate with the talent that he's got, I think he'll be just fine this year. Maybe not 11-win fine or 10-win regular season fine, but he's gonna be sitting pretty. Matt Campbell is with this Iowa State team at 9 wins, 10 wins again. He'll have a good year this year. Maybe slower production, and that's gonna be what loses his a couple games for him, but they'll be all right. They'll be all right.
Kind of want to talk briefly about these teams so we're not boring everybody to death here. But Kansas, Jalen Daniels comes back. They get a brand new football stadium. Brand spanking new. So the home field advantage is going to be back for Kansas and that rowdy student crowd. Last season, they started terribly and then out of nowhere decided to just cause absolute freaking chaos in the Big 12. Just out of nowhere, just decided, you know what? We're just going to become the best team anyone's seen in a 4-game stretch last season. It was a sight to behold. It was kind of crazy, right? You go into it and they see 16-ranked K-State lose by 2. Then they go and beat 17-ranked Iowa State. They go and beat number 6 BYU, and then they go and beat number 16 Colorado before coming to Baylor and losing 45-17. Like, out of nowhere, these guys were just the best football team in America. But you lose Devin Neal, very important piece on the running back side, right? But you're bringing in some other offensive guys. You get to bring in, again, another myriad of transfers. But the defense is only bringing 5 dudes back with 500+ snaps. But the defense is such a liability. In that stretch, they just couldn't stop teams on the offensive side of the ball. Teams just were having their way with them. And if you would have asked Kansas fans, they thought they were going to be an incredible team last year, and instead they were kind of just there in it in the Big 12.
Yeah, like you said, lost a lot of good players there. What really made them succeed was their pass game, but now they lost their top three wide receivers from 2024, and now Jalen Daniels is kind of sitting there by himself. Not that he can't recover, and that the backups or the people that are coming in can't catch the ball, but you know, are you going to be able to see the type of production in this team? And my answer is going to be no. I think Kansas, excuse me, takes a big step back from this prior year, and I hate that, because football is fun to watch when Kansas being good at football is an interesting breath of fresh air, especially for a conference that tends to be pretty easier, Wild West, but easier. Kansas is always fun to watch when they're good. But unfortunately, again, I see this team taking a big step back. Love Jalen Daniels. He'll make life interesting in some of these games, but I don't think that with an offensive line that's rebuilding as well. Like this team's in rebuild with a veteran quarterback. Is what it is, and that's it.
Let's jump to Colorado, probably the most polarizing team in the Big 12. First off, shout out Coach Dion, beating cancer. Congratulations, good sir. We're happy
Yes,
for
sir.
you there. But they lose Travis Hunter, Heisman winner. They lose Shadur Sanders. You're bringing in a new quarterback and Caden Salter from Liberty, who, again, was all over the place. Passing-wise, wasn't incredible, but he was really good with nearly 5,000 yards, 2,000 rushing yards, and 66 total touchdowns in 2 years at Liberty. Again, you're bringing in some transfers, new wide receiver core, Joseph Williams, Hakeem Williams, right? Sincere Brown, we're talking about. Bringing back Dallin Hayden at, running back. But then they have the Kalen Taylor from Incarnate Word. You have a brand new offensive line again. So, what they couldn't protect Shadur last year, and now they're going to be asked to protect Caden Salter. And again, they had to revamp the defensive side of the ball too, because they're losing all these dudes. And if it wasn't for Travis Hunter being him and Shadur Sanders being the quarterback that he was being, Colorado was just going to be a middling team, and they somehow became 8-4, right? 8-5. So I don't know. We give them a lot of credit because it's a Deion Sanders led team. So they'll always
give them all that credit. You go ahead.
So they're polarizing, but I don't know. I'm not nearly as high on them as some other people are. The floor is yours.
This is where they're going to end up, in a freezer, dead this year. There's nothing on the upside for them, and even their upsides have health issues, and that is not a diss at Deion Sanders. I think, here's what I'm getting ready to predict right here. They're going to have a 2023 style opening, right? They're going to win their first three, maybe their first four. Georgia Tech would be that nice TCU surprise, right? A team riding high into that year. I believe that was coming off of TCU's title run,
Yep.
if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So Georgia Tech ended the season on a real high note. They did lose to Georgia in 7 overtimes, but that's a team coming into this year with a lot of hype. And then you go to Delaware. We're going to count that as a dub. And then they go to Houston. I'll count that as a dub, possibly, maybe. And if they can get through Houston, then then they host Wyoming. I'll put that as a dub. And then you got BYU, TCU, Iowa State, Utah, Arizona, West Virginia, Arizona State, Kansas State, and I wouldn't be surprised if they lose all 8 of those games. And they end up back 4-8. It would not surprise me. I think, and they're going to hype them up. They're going to put them nice and up there after a nice Georgia Tech win. I bet they come out and they're smooth against Georgia Tech. The committee is going to like them, or the AP is going to like them. They're going to shoot them real high. They're going to feel nice about Deion. And then when BYU puts belt to ass, Colorado's season is going to be over from that point over. Zip them up, toss them in the freezer.
Dex.
They're dead.
All right, Dexter. Great show, by the way. I guess, really, I just want to wrap this up in terms of the last couple teams are Oklahoma State, because I kind of look at these teams kind of in the same.
Did you like that take?
I did. I loved the take. I love the take. I just want to end it so that way when we do the software gives you your moment. And if I kept talking, it wouldn't take your moment. But Oklahoma State, Houston, right, and Cincinnati, again, kind of in the same vein. Towards the bottom of the pack last year. I kind of expect them to be in the same vein, right? And UCF, Scott Frost is back, trying to revitalize the good old days of UCF. Same with
the championship winning, the national champion, UCF Golden Knights.
Same with Rich Rodriguez, going back into his second stint. Before that, he was 60-26 at West Virginia. He was responsible for the likes of Tavon Austin, at White, you name it. These guys,
big stud,
big deals. He brought in 52 whopping transfers, right, to this West Virginia team, and they could have a real chance to really shake up the Big 12 if Rich Rodriguez is able to do what he's able to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all listen. I want to talk about the conference as a whole. Everybody has a chance in the preseason. Everyone is 0-0. Some people have better odds. Others may not, right? But this team is special. Not this team. This conference is special. I mean, the conference is every game you can turn on is going to be a barn burner. Every game that you watch is going to have massive conference implications for the remainder of the year, right? This isn't like the SEC or the Big Ten, where we know half of them are not going to compete. Everybody in this conference, you can draw a line and somehow get them to potentially a top 4 finish, right? You flip a couple games, you flip a couple injuries, you can look at the likes of a UCF team can be 8-4 this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
West Virginia could be that. You can also look at teams like Arizona State, TCU, and even Baylor, and look at their schedule and go, these guys could be 7-5. They can be 6-6, right? It's the conference of chaos. How many teams do we think are going to come out of this conference to be in a college football playoff? Last year, they only had 1. This year, I think they get 2. I think they'll get 2 teams in. I think the way we look at the conferences, I think, are going to reward those who survived this Big 12 gauntlet, because these teams are actually all really, really good. So with that being said, DJ, who do you think is the top 2 teams? Because to me, I'm thinking unless the bracket in the Big 12, not bracket, but the conference game and the tiebreakers shake out weird, normally the top 2 teams in the conference will play each other, right? Those will normally be the 2 teams that make the CFP. But give me your 2 conference title contenders, and then who wins the Big 12 and who's punching their ticket to the college football playoff.
So I really believe that this is going to be a 3-man or a 3-leg race here with Arizona State, TCU. This is where it gets tricky. Kansas State. I think Kansas State's going to be in the running here. I wouldn't be surprised if they're not, but until they show me they're going to crumble, I mean, I do believe that that's going to be a team that's going to stay up there. But I think Arizona State and TCU make it to the title game, and I think TCU wins it this year. I think TCU wins the Big 12 championship. They punch their ticket back to the college football playoff. I like, again, Sonny Dykes with a veteran squad, and there's nothing that points, we can say quarterback play, and that's fine. But, I mean, his upside is still so there, and he's going into arguably what's going to be possibly his last year if he performs at a high level, right? So I'm expecting a ton of experience. I'm expecting a ton of off-season work. And I really like this TCU squad, veteran squad. And then Arizona State's going to do their thing. They're going to make it back to the title game. They're going to make it back to the college football playoff. It's just not going to be through the likes of a Big 12 championship.
I think for me, I think you could see where at least one team's going to make it for me is Baylor, and I do think Arizona State makes it back again. I just think having Sam Leavitt be who he is in that offense and Kenny Dillingham, I think those will be the two teams. I love the Kansas State prediction as well. Obviously, for my own vested interest, I am going to pick Baylor to win the Big 12, obviously. For my own protected vested interest. But it's one of those things where it's like, look at the team. They brought nearly everybody back. They literally, I just looked, DJ. They had a wide receiver going through the NCAA process, and he got cleared, and he was second in the team with catches, receiving yards, and touchdowns on the wide receiver side. So we got him back, and so I think again, if the defense for Baylor can improve again mightily and become a top 50 defense with the offense doing what it can do, it's hard pressed to not stop them, hard pressed to not go against them. And you also got to, and for me, I'm also going to look at the road we're going to take is so freaking hard, and if we beat most of these teams, it's hard to leave us out at the end of the year, unless they turn into like Florida State and they're just the worst team anyone's ever saw on the planet. But
yeah, it was pretty bad.
Most of these teams are going to be good, and that's going to reward Baylor later on. So
I mean, they've got a real opportunity. I think, again, to get through the gauntlet that they're going through, I think they need other teams to fumble.
Yeah,
and I think that's their path, though. I think their path to a Big 12 championship is definitely possible. Again, for me, it's just there's too many variables, right? The improvement that they need to make is clear, just non-existent yet. So I like Baylor. I like the potential that they have. Again, ceiling is high. Ceiling is real high. But I think they need more help than just themselves this year, personally, to get where they need to go. But what do we know? It's college football, baby. It's the Wild West.
That's why we run in these previews. They're all predictions right now. All predictions. Well,
no, straight facts.
Straight facts. Well, that's been it for the Big 12 preview. Next week, we're going to have the Big 10 preview. DJ's favorite. The Big 10 preview where the reigning Ohio State Buckeyes are. A lot to talk about there. And then the week after, we're going to get some SEC preview. We're going to talk some NFL. And then predictions. And then we're in full football season, baby. The best time of year.
Best time of the year.
He has been DJ McCathran. I have been Jacob Prail. We have been The Deal with D and J. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Find us on all platforms. We have been The Deal with D and J.